The moment Cristiano Ronaldo's name hit that courtroom, the air changed. A few people actually lifted out of their seats. A clerk froze with a file in her hand. A reporter in the back stopped typing mid-sentence. And Frank Caprio, who had spent a lifetime watching liars walk in wearing confidence like armor, slowly took off his glasses and looked straight at the man in the tailored charcoal suit, as if he had just heard the first honest thing come out of his mouth. Because until then it had looked like a simple ticket appeal. A rich man in polished Italian shoes arguing over a handicapped parking violation. Another impatient defendant with too much money, too much ego, and just enough charm to think rules were decorative. But there was something strange in the way he smiled, something rehearsed and cruel, the kind of smile that only appears when a person believes consequences are for other people. The courtroom lights were cold and bright above him, catching on his silver watch, the sharp fold of his pocket square, the dismissive tilt of his chin. He stood there like he owned the walls, like he owned the silence, like even the judge should be grateful for his time. And if you've ever watched arrogance walk into a room believing it can buy the ending, then stay with this one. Like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments whether you think justice still knows how to strike without warning. Because what happened in that courtroom didn't just humble a man. It exposed an entire sickness hiding behind wealth. His name was Damian Vale, a luxury developer whose face had been in magazines, charity gala photos, and real estate ads all over the city. He was the kind of man who donated publicly, smiled for cameras, and treated ordinary people like background furniture. He was appealing a citation for parking his black SUV in a handicapped space outside the Marston Hotel during a fundraiser. According to him, it was a misunderstanding. According to the officer's report, the vehicle had been there for 23 minutes with a handicapped placard that didn't belong to him. "Your Honor," Damian said, smoothing his cuff as though even the courtroom should admire him. "I was there for less than 2 minutes. This whole thing is absurd. If Cristiano Ronaldo stepped out of that car, nobody would have written a ticket. They'd be asking for autographs." A few people snorted. Someone muttered, "Unbelievable." Frank Caprio didn't smile. Instead, his eyes shifted to the woman seated quietly at the side, hands folded over a worn brown purse. She had come in on a different matter entirely, or so everyone thought. Her coat was too thin for the weather, the hem of her skirt neatly pressed, despite being old, her shoes practical and faded at the edges. She sat with the posture of someone who had spent her life making herself smaller so other people could stay comfortable. Her name was Anna Santos, a hotel housekeeper, a widow, and the registered owner of the handicapped placard found in Damian Vale's windshield. That's when everything changed. The clerk called her name, and Anna stood, voice shaking but steady enough to hurt. She explained that the placard belonged to her 10-year-old son, Tiago, who had a degenerative neuromuscular condition and needed assistance every time she took him to therapy. 3 days before Damian's ticket, the placard had disappeared from her bag while she was cleaning executive suites at the same hotel. She had reported it missing. 2 days after that, her own car had been ticketed outside a rehabilitation center because without the placard she had no legal place to unload her son nearby. She paid part of the fine with grocery money. The rest she still owed. Damian turned and looked at her as though she had interrupted a private dinner. "With respect, Your Honor, I don't know this woman. People lose things every day." People. Not a person. Not a mother. Not a name. The courtroom shifted. Caprio leaned back, fingers together, his face calm in that devastating way that always meant someone was about to regret underestimating him. "Mr. Vale," he said softly, "the permit in your vehicle was issued to Ms. Santos. That is not a coincidence. That is the beginning of a very serious question." Damian's lawyer stepped forward, suddenly less comfortable than he had been 30 seconds earlier. He started talking about valet confusion, administrative mistakes, perhaps someone on hotel staff placing the placard in the wrong vehicle. But the words were already losing oxygen, because the city prosecutor had something new in hand, and the bailiff was walking it up to the bench. Security footage. You could hear the room breathing. The video was grainy, but not grainy enough to save him. There was Damien's assistant in a cream blazer entering the staff corridor. There was Anna's housekeeping cart parked outside Suite 1408. There was the assistant emerging less than a minute later, sliding something blue into her handbag. And then, 10 minutes after that, Damien himself stepping out of the elevator, laughing into his phone, saying to someone just off camera, "Perfect. Now put it in my car before the photographers arrive." The courtroom went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that feels like a pressure wave. Even the fluorescent buzz overhead seemed to retreat. Damien's face lost color in stages. First the smugness drained, then the posture, then the eyes. He looked down at the screen as though betrayal had crawled out of it. His lawyer whispered urgently. Damien swatted him off. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, louder now, sharper now, desperation beginning to crack through the lacquer. "I host events that raise more money in one night than she'll see in her entire life. I don't steal from maids." There it was, the line that changed the energy of the room from suspicion to moral disgust. A woman in the gallery gasped. Someone in the back whispered, "Did he just say that?" Anna didn't flinch. She just stood there with tears gathered but not falling, dignity holding itself together, by force. And beside her, on the bench, was a little red keychain attached to her purse, a tiny soccer ball, and a miniature number 7. Later the court would learn it was Tiago's, because he adored Cristiano Ronaldo and carried that keychain to every treatment like a charm against pain. Caprio looked at Damien for a long moment, then said the line people would repeat for weeks afterward. "Mr. Vale, wealth can purchase a suit, a stage, and a temporary applause. It cannot purchase innocence." You could feel that one land, but he wasn't done, and the worst was still coming, because the prosecutor introduced phone records pulled with a warrant after the hotel reported internal theft. Messages between Damien and his assistant flashed onto the monitor. "Use the blue placard. She won't fight it. If anyone asks, say it was valet." Another message, sent after Anna reported the loss. "She's a cleaner. Who's going to believe her over me?" That's when everything changed again. Because now it wasn't just a stolen placard. It was a calculated act. He had wanted the handicapped space outside the hotel entrance so photographers could capture him arriving under the charity banner. He wanted the image of compassion while stealing from a mother whose child actually needed help. And when she reported it, he bet on class, on power, on invisibility. He bet the city would treat her as disposable and him as credible. Frank Caprio's face remained composed, but the courtroom could feel the temperature dropping around his words. He asked Anna one question. "Why didn't you stop when you realized where your placard had gone?" She swallowed. "Because, Your Honor, by the time I saw the photo online of his car with my permit in the window, I had to choose between missing work and taking my son to therapy. I chose my son." You could hear people exhale. One clerk wiped her eyes. Damien tried one last time to puff himself back into power. "This is a municipal ticket hearing. You're all acting like I robbed a bank." Caprio turned to him so slowly it was almost merciful. "No, Mr. Vale. A bank has guards. You chose someone you thought had none." Then came the monologue, calm and final and merciless in a way only true moral clarity can be. Caprio spoke about the difference between status and character, between charity and decency, between being photographed helping the vulnerable and actually refusing to exploit them. He said the law is not impressed by expensive fabric or rehearsed civility. He said the most revealing thing about a person is often not how they treat the powerful, but how confidently they harm someone who cannot strike back. He said Damien Vale had not merely violated a parking ordinance. He had weaponized privilege, filed false claims, defamed an innocent worker, and treated a disabled child's accommodation as a prop. Then he lowered his voice, and somehow that made it hit even harder. "You mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo because you thought fame explained special treatment. Let me explain something to you. Greatness is not walking past the rules while the cameras flash. Greatness is carrying a burden you didn't deserve without becoming cruel. And the only person in this room who has done that today is Ms. Santos." Dead silent courtroom. The judgment came down like a door slamming shut. Maximum fines on every applicable violation. Immediate referral for criminal review on theft, false statements, and misuse of a disability permit. Restitution to Ana Santos for her tickets, lost wages, and transportation costs. a formal order sending the hotel footage and messages to the prosecutor's office. And for the final humiliation, Caprio dismissed Damien's appeal in language so clean it felt surgical. You came here asking the court to erase a consequence. Instead, the court will preserve the record. Damien didn't say another word. He couldn't. The man who had walked in, shining with entitlement, walked out gray and shrunken, jaw tight, eyes down, no cameras waiting, no applause left to buy, just the sound of whispered disgust following him to the door. Anna stayed behind, stunned, as if justice had arrived too suddenly to trust. Caprio looked at her with that gentleness that made his severity even more powerful. He told her to focus on her son. The city would take care of the rest, and weeks later, it did. Other hotel workers came forward with stories of intimidation and stolen tips. An internal investigation widened. Damien's board forced him out. Anna's debt was cleared. Tiago made it back to therapy. And when the story spread, a local youth soccer league raised money for accessible transportation in his name, because sometimes justice doesn't end with punishment. Sometimes it multiplies into mercy. So if that courtroom moment hit you the way it hit everyone who watched a powerful man collapse under the weight of his own contempt, tell me in the comments what line cut deepest. Like the video if you believe dignity matters more than status. Subscribe for more stories where the truth fights back. And share this with someone who needs to remember that arrogance may enter loud, but justice leaves the final echo.